Welcome back to the pregame show here on WAJR.com. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening if you're listening on the game, wherever you may be listening. We're trying something new out this year where we're going to kind of get your pregame show out for you the morning of the game on Friday. We are recording on a Tuesday evening. Normally we'll probably record these on a Thursday evening, but Metro News has us doing other obligations and duties on Thursday night as it is the first week of high school football with the Kickoff Classic. By the way, that's between Morgantown High School and Parkersburg High School, so you'll probably watch that, but hopefully you enjoyed that. And now we're going to get into the Cee Bees here, and of course I'm always joined by family co-host, you can call him the Guardian because he's wearing his work uniform right now. Chance Collins. Chance, how are you doing today?
Doing well this evening, Ethan.
Yeah? So this is kind of new for you. I mean, you're in a studio, you're recording, you're not kind of going off the cuff here. I thought we'd try something new out, try and give people a little bit of production value and I guess showcase my skills a little bit as a producer/host and see how it goes. So, with that being said, this is going to be our season preview. Normally in the first segment, we'll probably go into an opponent preview game by game, but this week, since it's being the first week of the season, we're going to go into a proper season preview. We're not going to break down the schedule. We're not going to break down opponents in this segment. We're just going to break down the Cee Bees and what we see. So, Chance, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Well, the first thing I have on my list is returning contributors. And when you talk about returning contributors, I think the first thing that comes to people's minds, and probably the most important position in football, is the quarterback. And you have a returning quarterback coming off his sophomore season to his junior season, and that is Corey Cohen. And Chance, you always talk about this, that the sophomore to junior growth in maturity is always the biggest growth that you see in a young man. And I think we have kind of seen that in Corey Cohen this year. And not just because he looks different, because he's taller and bigger and has blonde, bleached hair and all this other stuff. And he's waving the hair around and stuff like that. But on the football field as well, he looks like a cool, calm, collected quarterback that isn't going to let, maybe if he does make a mistake, let it bother him as much as it did last year.
I agree. We both went and watched the 7-on-7 that they had, and the first thing that got my eye was the speed off the ball off his hand. Like from last year to this year, it went from a lob to a bullet, and it really did see. And even on that 7-on-7, he threw an interception, come to the sideline. I got to hear him talk a little bit. You know, he was talking the guys up. Let's get back out there. Let's do something. Very competitive, even in a 7-on-7 versus his own classmates. Went back out, drove him down for a touchdown, which you need that, you know, your best pass you got to worry about is the next one you throw. You can't worry about the one you threw before.
Absolutely. And another thing I kind of want to hint on is that when you look at the measurables and the numbers, he's one of your fastest guys in the 40-yard dash. So not only does he have an absolute cannon of an arm that he's able to get in these quick out situations or throw the ball deep down the field, he may be able to make you honest with his run game. Hopefully not too much, because we don't want to get the guy hurt, but at the same time, he's still got some decent mobility.
Agreed. And I think with the maturity that comes along with it, you know, in Martinsville last year, he got knocked out. Took a hit he didn't have to take, all because he wanted the extra yard. I'm hoping with the maturity level comes the point of he knows when to slide and knows there's another play coming. He don't have to give it all on every, you know, you ain't got to force that yard when it ain't as important on second down. You choose your moments to give that shoulder down.
I've seen him play baseball. He knows how to slide. So let's just hope that he knows how to do it on field turf as well. All right, so we'll move on from the quarterback position to the running back room. And I call it a running back room because it is truly a running back room. There is no bell cow. I think you're probably going to see a split even amount of carries between the two Calebs, and that's Caleb Snodgrass and Caleb Hall. split between those two guys. Now, some of them are similar in the aspects of their game. I would say they're probably maybe a little bit similar in size. I'd say Snodgrass might be a little bit bigger. Hall's a little bit taller. I would say Snodgrass is a little bit more elusive. Maybe Hall's just a tiny bit faster. Snodgrass will probably kill me for saying that. But at the same time, though, there are different aspects to their game that I really like about them. It's almost kind of a Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, if you remember those days quite well. I remember those days quite well. And there's a little bit of bounce to them, I think, especially with Caleb Snodgrass. One tackle I have never seen be able to bring him down. Caleb Hall is one of those guys who is going to see the Hall attack it and explode for 5, 10, and then 20-yard plus gains. Absolutely gets to the second, from the first to the third level in a very, very quick hurry. So I guess my question is what are you seeing out of those running back rooms that maybe I didn't touch on that you'd like to highlight about both Caleb Hall and Caleb Snodgrass?
Starting out with Hall, he was used as a bell cow last year, and in talking with Lapoe, he didn't like how much he had to use him because he was a freshman. Now, as a freshman growing into a sophomore, you're going to see the body growth. You're going to see he hit the weight room this offseason. He's going to be able to take more of a pounding, but I think he won't have to be the bell cow, as you said, because you've got Snodgrass coming in and relieving him, and it's a second tailback now that Lapoe has talked about. I don't have to run Hall 17 straight times. I got somebody who I can bring in and be confident. And the biggest thing I remember in our talks about Snodgrass is I don't know exactly what the 5 things were they judged. I know they done a 40-yard dash, they done like a bench press, a squat, and everything else. But the biggest point he brought up on Snodgrass, and he kind of grabbed his shoulder as he said it, was he goes, this boy was in the top 5 of all of them. And he goes, he's put in tons of work this offseason. And that's somebody who's wanting to contribute. And, after a while, it's going to be, which one do you give the ball? And I think it's one of them. If Hall breaks a big run, you're going to see Snodgrass on that sideline just grinning because now he's wanting to go out. He's going to want to show up Hall. And it's going to go back and forth. And I really think at that point in time, it could become exciting to watch as the season comes, how they work off each other.
All right, I'm going to put a kind of a little bit of a statement here. I think Caleb Hall is going to have more yards this season, but I think Caleb Snodgrass is going to have more touchdowns. I think that would be a fair assessment to say.
I'll go with the point of, I'll change it down just a little bit. I'm going to say that Hall will have more yards, may even have the more flashier plays, but Snodgrass is going to move the chains a little bit more. He's going to get you the first down.
Yeah, he's a measuring stick, as you would say, I guess. All right, and not only that, I mean, both of them will probably be very big contributors on the defensive side, but I'm going to get kind of into the nitty-gritty on the defensive side here in a second, but we're kind of really talking about offense, and this brings to the point to where we have been talking about it for what feels like forever, but really we've only had about a season and a quarter of this guy at wide receiver, and that's Braden Ponceroff. He started off at quarterback at the beginning of last year, got hurt, switched to wide receiver, back to wide receiver. You could see what he contributed again. Did one of those amazing highlight one-handed catches again. And now you sit there and you ask Lapoe, I asked him, I said, okay, an emergency situation, is Ponceroff your quarterback? No, he's wide receiver. He's completely committed to wide receiver. And I think that's a great decision there because Ponceroff is such a game changer at the wide receiver position, and I'm sure you agree.
Definitely agree with that. I know that when we went to the 7-on-7, he was one of the first people come up, said hi, and all I could see was the veins popping out of his arm. So I knew how his offseason program had went. The boy's ready to take more of a licking. He ain't going to have to worry about going across the middle, I don't think. He was more of a stretch guy in years past. And he's also been that receiver that's had you had a sophomore quarterback come in halfway into the season, and he had to up his play for the quarterback. I think this year you're going to see more of he's just going to be able to go out and do what he does because Corey's going to be able to get him the ball wherever he wants it.
You're going to hear me say this saying a lot, a 50-50 ball is not a 50-50 ball when you play one-on-one with Braden Ponceroff. And I think Coach Huffman, and if he's listening to this, I'll let him take all the credit in the world for this saying. When you watch Ponceroff play, you don't say how, you just say wow.
Boy, I like that.
Yeah.
I do like that saying. And he is. I mean, I don't know how many times I've just thrown my arms up in the booth over the last season and a half, seeing what he done. Done it at quarterback even. He's a heck of an athlete. But
good basketball player, too.
But there's no doubt that what he brings at the wide receiver position in single-way football, he could easily do it, I think, in double, gets into triple. I think he could perform quad A. That's a different beast. You would have a rougher time doing it. But you're talking about a kid who can probably go start at triple A at a lot of schools, and he's in single A. So it'll be interesting to see how he performs throughout the season, especially not having – last year he came into the season thinking he was going to be quarterback.
Yeah.
Halfway in, he gets moved because he gets injured, and he goes back to
and still comes in and performs.
Yes. So you just imagine an off-season program where the coaches looked at you and said, don't worry about that stuff no more.
Yeah.
I need you to be a receiver. He's working on the footwork. He's working on the catching, and it's going to be fun to watch.
All right, so we'll move on to kind of the O-line portion, Chance's favorite segment here, but we've got to highlight one guy in particular because he's been a contributor on this team since he was a freshman, and now he's a senior. Probably your team captain, or at least he's for sure one of them. Your leader, one of the first guys to come up to you and say, hi, how are you? One of the first guys to pick his teammates up and have them shake it off. An absolute workhorse and a great teammate and a great player, and that's Cooper Statler.
When it comes to Cooper, the first thing that comes to my mind is I watched the kid as a junior want to win for the seniors. I watched the kid as a sophomore want to win for the seniors. Now he's the senior. And I know how bad the boy wants to win. I don't know if I agree with his fashion statement he's making with two different colored cleats out on the field. But as you stated to me, it will be easier to find him for me out there because I did get him confused last year with one of the other boys from time to time. But with the cleats, it ain't going to be a problem. But straight up good kid, as an older person, I'll say that, has always amazed me how mature this kid has been from the moment I met him as a sophomore, and he's gotten more and more that way. And I think about when we were at 7-on-7s, he didn't say anything about what he did this offseason. He grabbed a hold of one of the freshmen beside him, and he said, watch this kid.
Yeah.
Watch this kid. And it's like,
he's going to be a beast. That's what he said. And that's verbatim what the guy said. He grabbed the guy by the shoulders and he said, this guy, I'm telling you, only a freshman, just out of middle school, be watching him.
Yep. Brought up the point the kid never missed a day in the weightlifting room, stuff like that. And it lets you know he's being a leader because he's watching who's showing up. He's watching who's coming through that weightlifting room and into the cardio room and showing up for the practices. And that's what a leader does, because when you're not there, the leader's going to tell you he didn't see you there. And I think Cooper's one of them kids. He's definitely got the size to do it. I mean, he could scare me if he wanted to tell me to show up for practice. So I'm looking forward to seeing that leadership out on the field this year. We kind of know that he moves around a little bit on the defensive side. The offensive side, he's just going to try to manhandle you on that line. He's the, how do I word it, premium statement for the big ugly on the line, because he ain't afraid to get down and dirty.
Speaking of big guys, first guy you want off your bus if you're taking an away trip is a guy by the name of Zach Gump, because he is terrifying. Have you ever I'm going to date myself a little bit here, and Chance is a lover of horror movies will love this reference, but there's a hard rock singer, his name is Rob Zombie, and he directs a series of horror movies, and it starts with House of a Thousand Corpses. And when I think of Zach Gump, I think of Tiny. And you'll probably laugh when you hear that and you don't understand the reference, but if you do understand the reference, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say Zach Gump reminds me of Tiny.
He's a huge kid.
Yeah.
I remember you sent me a picture when he first showed up last year, and his fingers at that time were like
his hands. It was just his hands.
Was 3 inches longer than yours. on the fingers, and it was amazing.
To be fair, people, I have small hands. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. I have small hands.
But this guy's got huge hands. And as you bring up the first one off the bus, I can remember we went down to last year they played at Wheeling for the state championship, and Martinsburg was getting ready to come out onto the field. And we turned around, there was a kid, I can't remember his name, but he walked on at WVU this year, I know that, who played, I think, left tackle for him. They had the other kid who was younger, who was the right tackle, and their shoulder pads were touching each end of the door to come out, and it was a double-wide door. And I think to myself, as a team looking across at the Martinsburg, and you see this is who's leading them out onto the field, it's going to be a long day, and it is. You want him to be the first one off the bus because you want them kids looking at him. And I do think from last year to this year, we're going to see an improvement in him. I think last year, if I remember correctly, he lost somewhere around 30 pounds as the season went
I think they said around 20 pounds, yeah.
And it's one of them, I think you're going to see a kid who's going to be in better shape this year to begin it. You know, when you got somebody that big, it may take him a game or two to get in that full game shape. But I don't feel we got that from Gump until about week 6, week 7 last year. And, you know, also early in the season, it's going to be a little bit hotter. We all know them big boys on the line. You want to rotate and you want to keep them fresh, and we'll probably lead into that here in another segment here in a minute of how that works out.
Well, I want to highlight some of the other starting linemen that's coming back, and the first guy I want to highlight is, I mean, speaking of gaining good weight, guy coming from freshman to sophomore who had to fill in at the center position last year, and that's J.J. Dosh, and the kid looks huge. He looks like a very big offensive lineman. He's only a sophomore. He looks like a junior or senior offensive lineman, especially considering single A standards.
Yeah, we've seen him at 7-on-7, and neither me nor you recognize the kid because he's growing so much. And do look forward to seeing him because at the center position, you do call out a lot of things. And once again, we talk about the maturity, the experience, and stuff like that. And for him to put on that weight and have the experience of playing, I think he'll be a fun player to watch on that line this year.
And then we also have Cameron Mercer coming back as well. And then Josh Wilson, who's really just a plug-and-play guy. I mean, you talk about a guy in Josh Wilson, he's probably going to play a predominant snaps on defense, but kid has such a good work ethic, I think, that you could plug him in on the offensive side if you need somebody coming and taking a rest or anything like that. Really good plug-and-play guy, another one of those senior leaders, and probably going to be one of your team captains this year. He's a quiet leader, but a good one.
He is. He's not the verbal leader. He leads by example. You know, I know he's excited for the season. I've, talked to him a couple times this offseason, and I can just tell the excitement in his eyes of coming out his senior year and wanting to put a stamp on something that Clay Battelle itself can look forward to. You know, there's no doubt in my mind he wants to taste what the playoffs are like. And as you said, plug and play. Like I can't remember the other kid's name right now, but I used to confuse him last year with somebody else all the time on that defensive line. And now looking back at him, coming back this year and getting to see him play just a little bit on film, watching some of the scrimmages, it's going to be one of them. He's going to be a handful on that line. And to see the other guys around him that's going to probably be on the defensive line with Gump and Statler and him, and we got J.J. Dawson, we got T.J. Barr, I think, is playing a little bit on the line.
Yeah.
Like we got...
Especially on D-line, too. I mean, he's going to be your D-tackle nose guard.
And what do we got? We got the Huggins kid that we'll get into here in a minute.
Huggy Bear.
Coming. Going to be able to help out on both lines. And I think, I kind of brought up the point that early in the season, a lot of them boys ain't in the shape a lot of times that you need to be into, game shape, we'll say. And the fact that I do think we have enough players to rotate on that line is going to be a benefit for us early in the season.
All right, so you hinted at it. Well, let's just get into it. The title of this next kind of segment in here is called Hornets Incoming, because we have a whole bunch of 100 Hornets incoming. And let me tell you something. These guys can play. I mean, I think these were players who were good contributors but were forced to make all the contributions. And it's really hard to do that over the course, and I'll just say it, over the course of 10 games with only 13 players, 14 players. Now, especially with this room, you can tap the head, come out, take a couple plays of rest, and you don't feel like the intensity of the play comes out, I mean, this team is just so deep, especially on the defensive end, and I'll kind of get into that here in a little bit, but we'll talk about mainly the 100 Hornets that we'll see, and we'll start out with the Huggins brothers. There's two of them, so there's Jax Huggins, who's going to be playing on the offensive line, and I've just coined it Huggy Bear, because he's a big old teddy bear. I mean, that's pretty much how he is. And then there's the other Huggins boy. I believe his name is Trey, and he's the other wide receiver, and he's also going to be your emergency quarterback. He played quarterback last year at 100. These are two guys who were leading the team at 100 last year as juniors, and now you're coming in, and I think they've adopted quite well. Really well, actually.
Yeah, the camaraderie we've seen between them and the Clay Battelle boys, like it's just meshed together. Like you can see it already that they're joking around with each other. You don't see anything like, oh, they're new coming in. It's almost like the Clay Battelle boys are happy they're getting some help. And, nobody wants to see a school close. Nobody likes seeing consolidation happen. But, when it comes to sports like we call, there's going to be an advantage to Valley Wetzel. There's going to be an advantage to us. There's going to be an advantage to
North Marion. I mean, North Marion's benefited from it from a long time. Yep. For a long time, I guess I should say.
And you got New Martinsville and Tyler are going to do it, because on the other side of Wetzel County, you got Payton City consolidating. It will allow some depth to some of these smaller single-A schools that maybe had 5 guys on the bench that you felt like could contribute and you wouldn't lose a whole lot. And now you mentioned the depth. I think we got possibly 10, 11 guys that you're going to be able to roll out there rotating. And, I think it may be one of the biggest advantages to us throughout the year, as I've looked at the starting lineups for us, is the fact that we're only going to have about 4 to 5 guys that are going to be out there the majority of the time taking snaps on both sides. You're going to see we got enough talent that we got enough players that we can put out there on the defensive side so that when they go out, they're fresh. On the offensive side, they're going to be fresh. And in single-A ball, that's huge, because I don't know how many games you watched where the 11 guys that are on offense, all they do is just turn around and they move to the opposite position on the other side. The wide receiver becomes a cornerback, the quarterback becomes a safety, the linemen become linemen. And after a while, if you're able to rotate out and put fresh guys on them, they're going to wear out on the offensive side and not push as hard. And on the defensive side, they're going to be able to be pushed just a little bit more if that guy you're putting out there is fresh. And when you got a guy like Zach Gump and Cooper Statler on that line, there's plenty of push about to come.
Yeah. So moving on here, we'll go to a guy that I was very excited about coming into this season. Kept asking, is he coming to Clay Battelle? Is he coming to Clay Battelle? And that guy's name is Tyler Sleeth. And I feel bad not putting him in the running back room, but at the same time, I'm going to label him as something else. He's a gadget, Chance, okay? Running back, slot receiver, linebacker, nickel corner, dime corner, safety, wherever you want to plug him. He's a gadget. The kid is just elusive, and though he may not be taking a lot of snaps initially, I think he's going to find a way into this team.
He's going to contribute majorly, and, if you go to any, recruiting sites like Rivals and those, you'll come down through several players, and I always find it funny because it seems like when you go into West Virginia and the commits, you always seem to have about 8 of these players a year, and that is you come down through and you'll have your regular positions, but then you always got that guy that just says athlete.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what Tyler Sleeth is. He's an athlete that's going to be able to help us on both sides of the ball, and it's going to be fun to watch. But he'll have as much time on that field as somebody who starts every snap at one position. He'll just have them amount of snaps in 5 to 6 different positions.
Now we'll talk about the guy that I'm most excited about, and that guy's name is I'm coining it right now, Colt Sandy, the Sandman, and this guy going to play tight end and edge rusher, and boy is he fun. Boy is he fun.
It's, you told me watch the film on the scrimmage, watch this kid, and before I even got to see it, you said you're going to love this kid. And when I watched the film, he's aggressive, he's fast, he's big, he's making plays out there already on the scrimmage. I understand it's just a scrimmage, but you can't help but to get excited when you see what is possible there at the defensive line / linebacker position, whatever you want to call it, because I think you're going to see a little bit of both. I think at times you're going to see him with the hand on the ground, and at times he's going to be standing up.
That's all I need to say on Colt Sandy. Just watch the kid. The film and stuff will speak for itself. So we'll move on actually to Chance's favorite addition this year, and that is a transfer from New Mexico.
You mean out by Arizona?
Yeah, I said New Mexico.
It's, I heard about the transfer rule in the state of West Virginia. I didn't know that New Mexico was included in that.
Well, we have one. His name is Caden Santa Fe Clovis. His father is from here, went to school here, and I would assume is working out in New Mexico, and he's come here to finish out his high school career. He'll be a junior this year, so we'll have him next year. But I think you can sum him up, Chance, in one word, and that is speed. This kid has elite speed.
We walked into the coach's room. We look up on the wall, and they got the 40-yard dashes. And here's this kid that I didn't recognize the name of. That's the fastest kid in the room. And it's like, who's this? Then you look up, and they got a helmet from Santa Fe up on the locker. Neat-looking helmet, by the way. Great-looking helmet. Come to find out it was Demons. It wasn't Devils because it had a little bit of similarities from my alma mater.
I think it had a pitchfork on it, did it not? Like the F had like the pitchfork kind of.
It had two horns on it. That's what it had. It had two horns on the F. And you get talking to him, and that's when I found I had to ask, and he said it was the Demons. But you go out and you watch 7-on-7, and you notice the speed. And you're sitting there going like, you've seen it in a number, and then you got to figure out, because there's all kinds of guys who can go run a 40 and be quick because they're track stars. Then they get on the football field, and for some reason it just disappears.
It's hard to run when you're not running in a straight line.
And it didn't disappear. And you see in the scrimmage where he gets beat, and there's 5 yards difference between him and the quarterback puts the ball up, and the 5 yards disappears real quick, almost like you're watching, Charles Woodson from the Michigan Wolverines. He's one of them guys, as much as I'm not a Michigan fan, that I always remembered that the guy was never open because the makeup speed was just there. And I'm just excited to watch him on the defensive side as I am the offensive side, because I think, the old term's always is speed kills. And I'm really excited to see how we're able to use that speed to our advantage.
All right, so we'll wrap things up here talking about the offense and the defense here, and I'm just going to pose the offense because we talked about it a lot here on with one question, Chance. Do you think this is one of the most balanced offenses you have seen in single A?
Got a lot more experience than you at watching some of these single A schools come through.
I wouldn't say that much more.
20 years probably on you, but
yes, but I mean, I grew up on it. Let's be real here. I grew up on it. My school may be AA now, but I grew up on it.
But at the same time, I will tell you this. I don't remember very many, if any, that I'm as excited to watch as I am this one, that I think can be dangerous on the ground and in the air. Because I remember watching Caleb Hall last year, and I always thought to myself, we'd talk about it during break, what would happen if he could get a rest? And I think we're going to get that this year with Caleb Snodgrass. Then you go to the offensive side or the receiver side of it. In the passing game, we got a quarterback coming back that I can tell is more mature. The ball's popping off his hand. I look at Braden Ponceroff, who I know can do anything when the ball's in the air. We just talked about Santa Fe. That safety ain't going to be able to move up. If that safety moves up, it's going deep. Like we seen that in the scrimmage. Yeah. It was 60 yards in the air, and it was, in stride. Like it was, I think you said you spoke to Corey, and Corey said, I just launched it as hard as I could. And, it's nice as a quarterback when you're under pressure to know that you can't overthrow the receiver. You just heat it up and let him go get it.
What is the common expression that's not appropriate for air? It's like, he's down there somewhere.
you just throw it up. And I mean, you can't help but to not be excited about it. I think, you got, a tight end this year.
Yeah, Colt Sandy's playing tight end, but you also have one of the fullbacks, which I didn't even write in my notes here. You have Cooper Payton, who's for those who follow Clay Battelle Athletics pretty heavily, very good basketball player. he's going to be playing kind of a hybrid tight end / fullback sort of position. But, I mean, the kid's got the size, hasn't played football since 6th grade, and I've seen him make one of the most textbook tackles that you can make. We'll only have him for 1 year. He's a senior this year, but going out the right way and playing with his buddies.
He is. And, I mean, like you said, you watch the film on him, and you can't help but to enjoy what you see. I don't know how many times myself, I say words you ain't supposed to say on air, screaming at my television because WVU can't figure out how to wrap your hands around nobody. They think shoulder tackling's a skill, which I don't think it is.
Well, I mean, going off here on a tangent a little bit, but when you've gotten away with it your whole high school career because you are 3 times better than everybody else, it's hard to change those kinds of things. And high school coaches, whether they want to say it or not, high school coaches, the premise of everything is about taking the basics and fundamentals of football and then teaching it to your kids so they know and have them. Sometimes, though, some coaches just love to exploit every single talent that they have and don't care about teaching the kids the fundamentals. Good college coaches can still teach that, but the whole point of a good college coach is to take those fundamentals, absolutely excellent athleticism, mesh them together to put a good disciplined football player and get them ready for the NFL. That's all it is. Lapoe's teaching it the right way. He's teaching kids the basics of tackling the safe way, the right way, and the best way.
And when you teach that, it's one of them things in smaller classes of football. Normally it's a big play that breaks open that gets you the score. And if you teach the right fundamentals, you're going to make a team have to take 11, 12 plays to get down the field on you. And you can watch in the higher classes of football, not very many of them can put that together before something fails. You get a holding penalty, you throw an incomplete pass on 3rd down. And it's one of those with teaching that. I think teams are against this team on defense are going to have to drive down the field on them. There's not going to be a whole lot of big plays given up, which will make it tougher for the opponents of the Cee Bees this year to take advantage of.
All right. That's going to wrap up the season preview for the Clay Battelle Cee Bees. Chance, thank you for joining me on that. When we come back, we'll have the coaches interview here on WAJR.com.
Your child doesn't have to leave home or go to college to build a future. The energy industry is hiring, starting at $25 an hour with benefits and certifications. And the more they learn, the more they earn. It's hard work, but it's worth it. It's not a short-term job. It's a career. And the energy industry is hiring. DPS Land Services. Learn more at dpslandservices.com.
This is Clay Battelle High Cee Bees football on WAJR.
Welcome back to the pregame show here on WAJR.com, a special pre-recorded edition. We're going to try something a little bit different this year, and I have the coach with me, Coach Aaron Lapoe, on the phone. Coach, how are you doing today?
Doing great.
Of course, joined by me as always is my color commentator, Chance Collins. And Chance, I'm going to let you start off with the first question. Oh, wait, no, I need to start off with the first question, don't I?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. All right, Coach, we'll get right into it. First thing I want to ask you is that coming into your second season, what have you learned the most in your first year as a head coach that you want to emphasize in this season?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. What have I learned the most that I want to emphasize this season? I guess I'd say trying to teach the children how to be leaders. Everybody talks about, hey, you need to be a leader, go be a leader. And what I've learned is they need taught how to be a leader. So we've been intentional about bringing leaders in the office and having conversations with them and talking to them about what we believe in. And they got to choose what we believe in, like who we are, what is Clay Battelle football. They defined it. And then we drew a line on the board of like, this is the standard. What are things that raise the standard and what are things that lower it as far as actual behaviors in our locker room? And that has been a beautiful thing to like see happen as far as watching kids, teaching them to be leaders and watching them take that and run with it. It's been cool. There's an old saying out there that says that when nobody's leading, the team's bad. When the coach is leading, the team is average. And when players are leading, the team has a chance to be great. So I would say that's what we're really trying to change from year 1 to year 2.
All right, Coach, I'm going to go ahead. That was definitely a nice answer. I like what you had to say there. I'm going to ask question 2, which is, what about the work over the offseason makes you feel this team is more committed than in years past?
Just that we had a lot of participation. We've had, since the season ended, there were kids that were dying to get in the weight room since last season ended, and they've been in there and they've been committed. And a lot of it's like your best players and your leaders. And I just talked to you about leadership, but I've told other people this, but like a kid like Braden Ponceroff, he gets it. Like, he doesn't just show up to the weight room himself. He brings a bunch of kids with him, and he makes sure that everybody else is there. He's checking on everybody else, and he's giving them a ride if they need a ride. When they're in the weight room, he's taking time to coach a kid up and help them with technique. So it's, a lot of times, like sometimes like skill players, they get a bad reputation about being like prima donnas or not working hard. And we're fortunate that our kids that are All-State and our second team All-State and things like that, and honorable mention, our best players are also our hardest workers and our best leaders. So that's exciting to see.
One thing I want to mention about that is that, Coach, I don't know if you came up with this saying or if you got it from somewhere. If you did, I'd love to hear who it was from. But you said you said this after the scrimmage, and don't worry, it's in the locker room. It was appropriate. But you said that commitment is not something we just put on the back of a T-shirt. It is something we live by. And if I was one of your players, I probably would have been ready to run through a brick wall for you at that point, because that was one of the best quotes I have ever heard. So
I think that might have been original.
Well, there you go. See, it's going to be on the T-shirt next year.
Well, I already put it. We put it on a weightlifting T-shirt. So
there you go.
That might have been where that came from. Yeah.
So my next question is about Corey Cohen, because the quarterback position is probably the most important position in football. What have you seen from him in growth from last season to this season?
Well, he's been one of the kids that's been committed in the offseason to the weight room. He's a lot more well-defined, bigger, stronger, faster. So he's the physical tools are more impressive than last year. And also, like, you grow from your sophomore season to your junior season. So he's grown some. And then he just has a very thorough understanding of our playbook, which, when the first game he started last year, Hancock, was just, was just the beginning. And so it's nice to be able to always just keep doing a little bit more with him as far as the playbook goes. So he's really done it all as far as improving his body and also his brain. So I've been real happy with him, yeah.
All right, that is nice to hear about Corey. I know that in the 7-on-7 when we came over and visited with you guys, like the competitive spirit that kid has, you just can't help but to love it, and I hope his teammates grab a hold of that and run with it.
No, he is a true competitor. I mean, he might be playing chess during a chess club, or he might be I have an ultimate Frisbee club, and we're just in there playing ultimate Frisbee and running around, and he wants to win. He's a competitor, and so you can roll with kids like that for sure.
Okay. Now, with question number 4 here is, what newcomer or underclassman are you looking at taking a step up this season?
Oh, man. That would be a lot to name. There's a lot of newcomers. I'll start with our boys who are on our team now with 100 closing. And, again, I'd like to say, like, they did not want their school to close. Nobody wanted their school to close. We all, our communities believe in small schools, but we were their best option when that happened. And we hate that their school closed, but we're tickled to death that we're here because they're good kids. So Trey Huggins is he was already honorable mention All-State for 100 last year, so he's a phenomenal athlete. Jackson Huggins was a good. He played some fullback and linebacker for them. He's going to play offensive line for us. He's been unselfish like that. Yeah, I'll go play offensive line. I just want to win, coach. And so he's going to play offense and defensive line and some linebacker. Both of those boys are real impressive. Colt Sandy has already scored over 1,000 points in basketball for 100. So he's one of the best athletes in Wetzel County. And he is just he might be the toughest kid on our team as far as just mental, having guts. If we run the hill, he won't stop. He wants more. And if we take it easy on him one day and don't run the hill, he's upset about it. He's just that tough and has that big of a motor. So all three of those guys are going to be very impressive. We have another newcomer. His name's Cody Clovis. He was at Santa Fe, New Mexico last year. His dad's originally from our community. He just moved home. And he's just a very fast athlete that we're going to utilize in a lot of places. And if you watched our scrimmages, he's already made some just phenomenal, amazing athletic plays on our scrimmages.
Nobody can stop talking about Santa Fe in this booth. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah. And we have a freshman, Jacob Layton, who he's a freshman. He was on our middle school team last year, but he did not miss one day in the weight room, and he has worked himself into being able to play varsity football on the defensive line. Some kids that are, underclassmen. Caleb Hall had a really nice freshman season last year, ran for 700-something yards, and so we looked to him to be able to do more at tailback, and same thing with Caleb Snodgrass, who was a 10th grader last year. He's a junior. He's also one of the toughest kids that you've ever been around. And back there at running back, too, another kid, newcomer from 100, Tyler Sleeth, has been looking good at running back. I keep naming all these names. And
I was about to say, we asked for a couple guys. He just named off the whole team pretty much, guys. And he left off so many guys. I mean, it's just...
I was going to say, can I throw one more out there?
Sure.
What's your thoughts
watching
leading up?
I love talking about him. So
is J.J. Dotson, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
J.J. Doshin.
Yeah, okay.
We had an injury at center last year. Alex Dancer was a senior, got hurt, and JJ came in and played center as a freshman. And he was 190 last year as a freshman. Now he's 230, and he plays center and he plays defense. And again, he's just he's what our goal when we go into a game. We aren't results oriented; we're process oriented, and our goal is to be the toughest football team on the field, and another one that JJ is tough. And no, he is going to be impressive to watch this year too. I'm glad you mentioned his name because and another. I guess Cameron Mercer he's a senior. He's been around. He's not a newcomer or an underclassman. He's a senior, but oh man, get ready to watch him play too. On the offense and defensive line. There's a bunch I could talk about all of them. One of the cool things is being a small school, we have 26 kids on the team. 19 of them are absolutely ready to play varsity football. And they're going to be playing Friday night at meaningful times throughout the game. So we're preaching to our kids that, listen, starters, just a word. There's 19 of you. And then, so we have 7 kids that still aren't ready yet, that are, developmental JV type players. But 19 of them that we believe that you can trust to go win varsity football games, which is,
hard to believe in single A, especially.
Yeah, it's kind of, exactly. It's hard to believe. Yeah. But it's true. And we hope that gives us, some strategic advantage with keeping them fresh and things like that.
Well, all right. We'll move on from talking about us. I know you could talk about us all day, but we got to talk about the opponent a little bit in Cameron. And I sum this up in just a few words because it's hard to describe them. But in your words, what makes them so good?
I mean, maybe what we're trying to be. Like I say, we're wanting to be the toughest team on the football field. They're they're toughest team on the football field when you watch them on film when they're playing. They're very, aside from that, they're very fast and they're very aggressive and they're well coached. Coach Brown does a great job with them. His defensive coordinator makes sure they're ready for anything you throw at them. So that's been what stands out to me looking at them as an opponent as far as what makes them Cameron. Yeah.
And kind of feeding off of that, Coach, I'll go with how do you feel about going up against a team week one that this community hasn't beaten in a decade?
Yeah, so I knew you guys were going to ask me that question. This is what I tell the kids, and I genuinely believe this. I tell them, I don't care if you're playing the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Wetzel County Crawdads. There's a process to being successful, and if you pay attention to all the small little details, the wins will take care of themselves. And so the challenge is this week is like, listen, let you guys talk about the decade of not beating them. Let the kids in the school talk about that they were state runner-ups last year. Let people in the community and their parents talk about how they're preseason ranked number 4. For us, they're an opponent, and we need to treat them like an opponent. And you don't underestimate any opponent, but you sure as heck don't overestimate them either, and lose confidence in yourself or anything like that. So, I know it sounds like coach speak, but I really, really, really believe that if we fly around and play fast and we strive to be the toughest team on the field and we are technicians with all the small little details, then whatever happens at the end of the game, if it's destined to be, it'll be,
I can tell you this, Coach, with what you said, and me and Ethan, we like to talk football. We like to talk all kinds of sports. But I can tell you this, leading up to that game, there will be that talk around the community in Cameron,
and that's part of the fun
and here.
For people.
But the
that's for them, and that's just not for us, but I get it.
But the funnest part of that is come Saturday morning, depending on what happens on that football field, the talk could be completely different.
Oh, yeah.
And that's, that's what's nice, because a lot of people don't remember history. They remember what's happened most recently. And I know that, me and Ethan are excited. I'm sure the Cameron boys are excited. I'm sure our boys are excited. And it's just going to be fun.
High school football is all about, yeah.
Yeah, it's just getting on there. And, arch rivals is one of them things that a lot of times it can be nasty. It's one of them you don't want to say you don't like somebody, but it can get that way at times. But what I can say out of respect to Cameron's coach is that when I went and spoke to him from my position, the man's been one of the most respectful people out there on that football field. And it's
absolutely.
It's hard to dislike him.
He was really good to me last year as a new coach. I talked to him on the phone quite a bit. He's very helpful, very good man towards me. Absolutely. Somebody I respect very much. Yeah.
Well, my last question for you, Coach, it's a pretty simple one, and is that are you tired of us talking about it? Are you tired of practicing?
We're ready to play.
Are you ready to play a game?
Can you guys get the game rescheduled for tomorrow night? I mean, we're ready to go. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. I appreciate your time, Coach. Thank you so much.
All right.
All right. That is the coach's interview brought to you by HealthWorks Rehab and Fitness. Has been West Virginia's choice for physical therapy for over 45 years. When your body hurts, go to HealthWorks. Find a location near you at healthworkswv.com. Chance, first of many, and let me tell you, Lapoe knocked it out of the park. I can tell you that his media speaking has gone up a little bit.
I can tell what he's been working on the off-season program, and he was preparing for us. He was preparing for interviews because, yeah, you're right. He knocked that out of the park, well-spoken, and, I can't help but to correlate between me and somebody, like I admire tremendously in high school football. But I can remember years ago watching Jody Moat walk into St. Mary's and taking a program that at that time, it almost become non-competitive and making them competitive. And when I listen to Lapoe speak, it's how Jody spoke. It was about making young boys into young men, and the football work will take care of itself.
All right. That'll wrap it up for the coach's interview. When we come back, we'll talk about the opponent, Cameron. We'll break them down a little bit, and we'll talk about some stuff that's going on around the state. Give us some predictions. And Chance, are you up for a little wager on predicting state champions?
I'm up for that, Ethan.
Okay. All right. Well, when we come back, we'll wrap up the pregame show here on WAJR.com.
College isn't for everyone, and that's okay. There's another way to build a life right here. The energy industry offers real pay, $25 an hour to start. They'll get full training, certifications, and a path to grow. It's not a short-term job. It's a career. The dream doesn't live in a dorm. It lives in hard work. And the energy industry is hiring. DPS Land Services. Learn more at dpslandservices.com.
This is Clay Battelle High Cee Bees football on WAJR.
Welcome back to the last segment of the pregame show between the Clay Battelle Cee Bees and Cameron. Joined by me, as always, is Chance Collins. And Chance, we'll talk a little bit about Cameron, and then we'll get into some what's going on around the state. So, obviously, a lot of people know Cameron is the returning state runner-up, lost to Wahama in the state championship. However, they are returning some talent, and mainly that starts with their quarterback.
Yes, the quarterback, I've seen some film on Cameron this year, and I can tell you clearly is their best athlete. They've put their best athlete at quarterback for sure, and he will be a handful come Friday night.
Kason Angel is the guy's name, and probably his number one target will be wide receiver Sawyer Reed. And if that name sounds familiar, it's because he was running all across the Cee Bees defense and probably special teams last year on Metro News Television.
Yeah, I
think he returned the kickoff back for a touchdown, but I do know the kid's got elite speed.
Yeah, but I was thinking, we were both thinking that he was the one to return. Like, we wanted to build up. Maybe there was the second half comeback, and then you kick off. Do we believe this kid Reed? And he just returned it all the way, and it was kind of the air came out of the sails for say last year for us.
And then they have another John Marshall running back transfer in Marshall Holland. We'll see how he adjusts to single A football. Moving on to what we see about this Cameron team. I mean, Chance, I'll just ask you the question. Do you believe there's really a such thing as a championship hangover in high school football, or do you think that high school football, especially in single A, is more of a been there, done that, and the hardest part is really trying to break through to say that you've been there and you have done that?
I believe it adds a major advantage to the mental game in games if you've been there before. The hardest part normally is it takes a year for you to get to the state championship. You know, in the playoffs, just make it to the playoffs. Then you take that year of growth, that gets you to the championship game. The hard part in single A football is that normally when you make that championship game, you better win it, because come next year, you're going to lose about 5 to 6 players that are major contributors to that team. And then it becomes, you know, you got certain teams that we can talk about like Martinsburg, and then they just reload. But in single A football, that's a lot harder. The transfer rule, you mentioned the John Marshall guy coming in. Maybe that's what Cameron needs. Maybe they brought in somebody they knew at a position they were going to be weak. They bring in something and they're reloading up. I do know on the film they look small, but they look fast.
Absolutely. So I was going to ask Chance if we wanted to do a score prediction for this game, but I don't think we're going to do that for this game. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at things around the state. We'll start off with Quad A. Wheeling Park against Parkersburg South. Who do you got in this one? We don't have to get into too much specifics. It is week 1, so we're probably just going to go off here on a whim. and once the season develops, you'll hear people talk about guys, and we'll sit there and go, okay, that's a name probably we should recognize, and then kind of go from there. This week, it's all about guesses.
I'm going to go with Wheeling Park just because I feel they've been the more consistent program as of late. I feel like Parkersburg South has had ups and they've had downs. If it ends up being an up year for them, they can probably take it, but at this time I'm going to go with Wheeling Park.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Chance, because I think this year is an up year for Parkersburg South because last year and probably the last couple of years has been down. So I'm going to go with Parkersburg South. Probably the game of the week here. It is in the Eastern Panhandle. No surprise there. The returning Quad A runner-up Spring Mills going up against their Eastern Panhandle foes, the Jefferson Cougars. A lot of hype talking around Jefferson this year. What do you think in that matchup?
I'm drinking the Kool-Aid is what I'm going to tell you. Like, I think Spring Mills last year was great for their school, and I think it will help them in the long run. But the quarterback they lost last year, I think is just going to be too much for them to overcome early in the season. I think they're going to have some growth. Jefferson, on the other hand, I just believe is an up-and-coming program in Quad A, and I believe in that coaching staff that I see and what they're growing down there. I'm going to take Jefferson week 1.
I'm probably going to take Jefferson as well, so we're in agreement there. We'll move on to AAA here. The other two schools in Marion County, North Marion and East Fairmont, probably not your usual suspects with Fairmont Senior here. I always say this. I feel like it's a shame that East Fairmont is in Marion County because I feel like they could play if they were in AAA in any other county, they'd be the second or best team in the county. But unfortunately, you're in a county with two schools that are perennial state championship contenders, whether it was in AA or whether it was in AAA. Now they're both in AAA, of course. East Fairmont versus North Marion. Who you got?
I'm going to take East Fairmont. I'm just going with that because I think it's a big game for them. I think they need to start out fast if they want to have any chance at making the playoffs, and I think this could be a game where they could gain several points because I do think North Marion's a good ball club.
I'm going to say the classic saying, been there, done that. I'm going to take North Marion. All right, South Charleston versus Ripley. I put this one on here because Ripley made the playoffs last year. I believe they had a very good year, went 7-3, 8-2. Was one of those kind of things where you were looking at the record and go, how'd that happen? I think they won a playoff game as well, ended up getting beat by a state championship contender. And then you have South Charleston. You're probably thinking, well, Ethan, I mean, you're talking about a playoff team in Ripley that is playing a team that I think won one game or two games last year in South Charleston. Why are you picking them? Simply because of the head coach. The head coach of South Charleston transferring back from Hurricane, brought some of his players from South Charleston when they won a state championship back in 2020 with him to Hurricane. Got to imagine the same thing's happening again where kids from Hurricane are going back to South Charleston or maybe even just came up through the Hurricane ranks, got to know the coach, going to South Charleston now. I think South Charleston's going to be dangerous this year in AAA.
It's hard to argue with you because I do love coaching, and I think coaching has a lot to do in high school football. But I do think it takes a little while to change your program is what I'll say. And for some reason, I brought up the point that sometimes in high school football, you take that first year to get in the playoffs and you learn from it. I think Ripley's returning enough that they're going to take this off South Charleston.
Moving on. Well, I'm going to take South Charleston here. Moving on to AA. Saturday game at Roane County, and no, Roane County's not playing in it. It's James Monroe versus Williamstown. Need I say more? I mean, it's Dubtown. They get dubs. What do you expect?
Williamstown does, and there's no doubt about that. I'm never really excited to see Williamstown. I'll just put it out there, okay? But I will tell you this. I'm excited to see what this program does this year. And the reason I say that is because I think the coach down there is going to have to replace more than he's replaced in a long time.
Ever.
And
if you don't mind, I'm going to throw a stats at you real quick. 48 players, which, good Lord, at Williamstown. 36 of them, freshmen and sophomores.
And, I mean, you just think about the star players they've lost in the last couple of years that, I was surprised last year he done as good as he did when they moved up to AA. I'll be honest. I think he done an excellent coaching job last year. But at the same time, I just don't see him repeating it this year. But I am going to take Williamstown with the win. I think this game's going to be a lot closer than a lot of people expect because I think James Monroe's got a good ball club. But Williamstown's conditioning will be what wins this game for him.
Ricky Allen's younger brother, I'm sure you remember that name from a couple of years ago. He's going to be the starting quarterback at a sophomore this year. Williamstown also getting a turf field, Chance. I know how much you love that.
Yeah, it's the one thing I liked about Williamstown is when you went down to watch them play, at least I got to watch on a grass field. It was normally a pretty muddy mess field, but at the same time,
you also got to sit in those great visiting bleachers as well.
All three of them, yes, yeah. I agree.
Anyway, I have Williamstown winning as well. Can't pick against my alma mater here. AA, Lincoln High School, which is is it in Shinston, technically, in
yes.
Shinston, against Elkins, which is a AAA school now with the new reclassifications. Chance, who you got in this one?
I'm going to go out on a limb here. I know Lincoln normally runs a high-scoring offense, and I think early on, I'm going to take Lincoln with the upset, even though they're playing a class up. I think they're going to pull it out. Elkins
has usually never really been a perennial contender at the AA or AAA side, whichever classification they've been in. I just threw that out there because it's AA versus AAA side. I'm going to take Lincoln as well. We're going to highlight three single A matchups. I guess it's the Hayes Collins Bowl, right? Is that technically right? With Tyler Consolidated versus Ritchie County High School. Tyler Consolidated also in AA here, Ritchie County in single A. Who you got, Chance?
Family, the Collins side of it, my kids go to Ritchie County. Tyler, having my cousin's kids going there. But at the same time, I think Tyler's just been a more consistent program. And I think a program
they've been like that close. Like a few times. Now, Ritchie County's gotten over that hump, won one state title. You just sit there and go, Tyler's been so close so many times.
And I just think the talent is more there right now. I think Ritchie's kind of rebuilding. They had a down year, switched coaches, I think, at least going into last year. And I think they're still trying to build that program up where Tyler's just going to have the advantage.
I'm going to take Tyler as well. Two opponents that Cee Bees fans are familiar with, Tigritz Valley versus Valley Wetzel. One of these schools not on the schedule this year in Tigritz Valley, but you still will play Valley Wetzel come week 3. Chance, who you got in this one?
I'm going to go with Valley Wetzel, and my main thing is we brought up the consolidation thing, and I do think it's going to make Valley a better team because of it. The one thing that does scare me is I know they lost their quarterback from last year, who was an all-state player, and it'll be interesting to see how they replace him.
Is it weird? Isn't it kind of weird to think about the I guess the expectations that we're throwing to this team, and we went 0-2 against these guys last year? It's wild to think about. Anyways, I'm actually gonna take Valley Wetzel as well. Probably one of the games of the week here. Probably, I would argue, the second best game in single A, first being Cameron and Clay Battelle. You should tune into that one on WAJR.com, but you're probably already doing that. Second best game is East Hardy versus Wahama, Chance. Possibly a state semifinal preview that we're looking at here.
It definitely got some talented teams right here coming out. Like for a week 1 matchup, you're going to learn a lot of, I guess, the real team versus a contender, or you're going to find out that both of them are contenders because it just ends up being a really, really good ball game. I will take East Hardy. I think they're going to be able to make that bus trip up there to Wahama. I think Wahama won the title last year, and if you ask me, can there be a hangover? The hangover is going to be you lost a lot of kids and you got to replace them.
Been there, done that, Chance. I'm going to take Wahama in this one. So, all right, those are our picks for the week. And with it being week 1, we always like to do predictions on this show, and we're going to pick 4 state champions. Chance, I'll let you go first. Who do you have winning in Quad A? Well, I know who you have winning, but tell the audience.
Until somebody knocks off the king, they remain the king, and it will be Martinsburg.
I have the Huntington Highlanders.
It's an interesting pick, but at the same time, it's just hard to.
They have a wide receiver and tight end who I watched go down to the wire. I watched this team go down to the wire with Martinsburg in the semifinals last year. All it took was them going for a 2-point conversion and failing it in Martinsburg for them to advance to the state championship. I think they have a lot of their guys returning back, but they do have the top recruit, I think the top recruit in the state, and I'm blanking on his name, but he's committed to Clemson to play wide receiver. If that tells you anything. So I'm going to go with the Huntington Highlanders. AAA. Chances have been there, done that when it comes to state champs. Not picking winners, obviously, but, you know.
It is. It's been there, done that. They run an offense that I absolutely love and you absolutely hate.
It's boring, Chance. It's boring.
I don't know how you can say
If I want to watch 1930s football, I'll watch the Cleveland Browns actually win a championship, okay?
Okay, you say boring, but there's a difference between what most people like. When Navy runs it, it's 3 yards.
Navy is a triple option. It's
3 yards in a cloud of dust.
This is rugby with pads, Chance, and more pauses.
But when they run the rugby system from the moment they're 1.5 years old until they get to be a senior in high school, it ain't 3 yards in a cloud of dust. It's one play in 80 yards, and it's just hard to go against Bridgeport.
I'm going against Bridgeport. I'm going to go with Princeton. Air it out, boys. Air it out, Tigers. I'm going with Princeton. He's writing it down. He's probably going to look back on this. We're probably going to be here on the last week in November, and he's going to be like, see this? It's sand. You know what it's going to be on week 10 in high school? Sand.
And I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, it will only be brought up when we're eating that phenomenal barbecue that I found in Charleston, okay?
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, can't even remember the name of the shop right now, but we end up, I heard Dooley
Hey, careful about the advertising, okay?
But I don't even remember the name. All I remember is I heard dueling banjos on the way to the shop, and I really wasn't sure if we were going to make it back out of the valley. And we come across a barbecue shop that was easily the best barbecue I've ever ate.
Yeah. I forget the name too. Anyway, AA side. I'll actually go first. Frankfurt's repeating.
You're going to hear that repeat often because it's Frankfurt.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll move on to single A, Chance.
How about you lead the way on this one again?
Oh, really?
Yeah, go ahead and put it out there because I don't want to say save the best for last, but
well, you probably have the more realistic approach, but I'm kind of going hopeful here. I'm going to go with Tug Valley.
Interesting pick. I know they're returning a lot.
Only because Wheeling Central, which is who you're going to pick for the state championship here, spoiler alert, okay, folks? Wheeling Central Catholic is going to lose some games, okay? They will not be the number one seed. They may win the state championship, but they will not be the number one seed. What kills Wheeling Central more than anything in the world?
Talent. Go ahead.
No, it's grass. It's natural grass.
It is, but they won't play him. They'll play him in the championship game on turf.
They're going to play. They're going to be the number 3 seed, and Tug Valley's going to be the number 1 seed, and they're going to beat them on their home floor.
I'm going to word it this way to you. Wheeling Central Catholic is going to get to play on a turf field in the championship game. The only down part for them is going to be, it ain't going to be at Wheeling Island where 90% of their fans show up with the high license plates because they're a private school. Wheeling Central Catholic is Steubenville JV. And they will repeat again and again as state champions until my gripe that I have all the time, that private schools should in no way, shape, or form be able to play in the class that they're in. They should always have to play a class up.
Chance voicing his gripes and opinions on the first week of a pre-production show. I want to appreciate you for coming out here on this Tuesday evening. That is when we were recording. We'll publish this out on Friday morning and hopefully have it for you on the pregame show before kickoff between Clay Battelle and Cameron. I want to thank everybody for listening and hope you continue to tune in throughout the season and right after this as the Clay Battelle Cee Bees get ready to take on the Cameron Dragons here on WAJR.com.